All right, today on The Explainer, we are diving deep into a really high-stakes standoff that's developing in the Middle East. We're talking about the threat of a military blockade that has put two global powers on what looks like a direct collision course. So how did we get here? Well, after some intense peace talks just suddenly collapsed, the whole world is basically holding its breath. The United States and Iran are now trading direct military threats, and it's all happening over one of the most critical waterways on the entire planet. Okay, let's get right into the thick of it. This whole story just exploded when US President Donald Trump announced a major military action. And let me tell you, this has escalated tensions to their highest point in a very, very long time. And this wasn't just talk. An official announcement quickly followed from US Central Command, CENTCOM, and they confirmed this was not just rhetoric. They set a hard deadline, which has made the threat of a full blockade of Iran's ports a very imminent reality. So you hear this word blockade, but what does it actually mean in this situation? It's really crucial to understand this is not just another sanction. No way. It's a formal act of war. We are talking about a military operation that's designed to completely cut off a nation's access to the sea. Now, the U.S. military also laid out some very specific rules of engagement. They said while the blockade applies to all ships going in or out of Iran, CENTCOM stated it would not get in the way of ships that are just passing through the strategic Strait of Hormuz to other countries. This detail is really key. It frames the whole action as a very targeted measure, aimed only at isolating Iran. Look, a move this aggressive doesn't just happen out of a vacuum. It is the direct result of some incredibly intense, high-stakes peace talks in Pakistan that completely fell apart, seemingly at the very last minute. And this slide really gets to the heart of the whole disagreement. Both sides walked away from the table basically pointing fingers. The U.S. side claimed the deal failed because Iran, quote, is unwilling to give up its nuclear ambitions. Meanwhile, Iran accused the U.S. of maximalism and of shifting the goalposts right when a deal seemed to be within reach. In fact, Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, he painted this picture of a deal that was just tantalizingly close. He claimed they were on the verge of an agreement, just inches away, before it was all scuttled by what he described as completely new demands from the U.S. Okay, so now let's turn to Iran's reaction to all this, which was swift, it was defiant, and it escalated the war of words to an even more dangerous level. The Speaker of Iran's parliament, Mohammad Bagher Kalibaf, he issued this very direct and unambiguous challenge. He made it crystal clear that Iran would not back down and that it would absolutely meet force with force. And then things got even more serious. Iran's powerful Revolutionary Guard Corps also weighed in. They declared the strategic Strait of Hormuz a total red line, warning that any foreign warships that even approach it would be, quote, dealt with severely. And that dramatically raises the stakes for anyone trying to enforce this blockade. As you can imagine, the impact of this standoff was felt almost instantly. We saw shockwaves rippling far, far beyond the Middle East, and they hit the global economy. And they hit it hard. So, first and foremost, the energy markets just panicked. The price of Brent crude oil, which is a global benchmark, it surged right past that critical $100 a barrel mark. And it's all based on fears that a wider conflict could seriously disrupt the world's oil supply. And you can see the very real physical impact on shipping right here. Even before the blockade officially began, just the threat of it was enough to cause traffic through this vital choke point to absolutely plummet. The daily average of ships passing through dropped to just a tiny fraction of what it normally is. And what about America's allies? Well, even key allies are proceeding with extreme caution. The United Kingdom, for instance, they voiced support for the general principle of freedom of navigation, but they explicitly confirmed that they will not be participating in the US-led blockade. That highlights that there really isn't a broad international coalition for this move. But here's where it gets interesting. Even as military tensions are sky high, we're getting some conflicting signals that suggest that the diplomatic path might not be totally closed for good. For instance, the Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, suggested a deal is still achievable, but he put the burden squarely on Washington. He said an agreement requires the U.S. to change its approach and to, quote, respect the rights of the Iranian nation. Now, in stark contrast, you have President Trump, who is projecting absolute confidence in his strategy of maximum pressure. He predicted that the blockade would be the thing that forces Iran right back to the negotiating table, where he believes they will concede to all of America's demands. So, what's the key takeaway here? We have this incredibly high-stakes standoff where both sides are using the threat of war as leverage. And this leaves the entire world just watching and wondering, is this a calculated, high-risk gambit to try and force a better deal? Or is this the final, unstoppable step towards a truly devastating conflict?